coffee, and I thought I would talk books. Books are one of the greatest love of my life, but the same token, someone said voodoo pas de livres, which means voodoo is without books. And books are mostly a waste of money. I'm going to tell you that right now when it comes to voodoo. Most of it is just going to be exactly what it is book knowledge, and it's experiential knowledge, which is a true knowledge of voodoo, and it's an oral tradition. So it's only going to help you to ask the proper questions of the priest is what you need to go into and properly do some of these traditions. But I thought I would talk about some of the books that I do find that are decent. I don't buy a lot of voodoo books. There's a few on my wish list, but I'd say I try to find the books that a lot of other priests recommend and like, and I've probably been disappointed with probably about 50% of them. What you want to avoid is any books that's a bunch of spells or is just hoodoo. And when I say just hoodoo, I'm not knocking hoodoo. I'm just saying that hoodoo is not voodoo. And a lot of people sell books of hoodoo and try to use the label of the religion to try to sell books. And a lot of these people are not even in the traditions that they write about. So it's only going to be so realistic and so accurate. So I have a few books down here. Some of them are just for personal development or in general, and then some of them are about voodoo, and then some of them are about Espiritismo. So Sanse is Spiritismo, and which is spiritualism and folk spiritualism with the dead and ancestors, and then we also have the separate tradition of voodoo. So the very first steps in my tradition is probably it would be spiritualism and doing that first, and it's only going to make you stronger in when you do go into any other tradition or you go into voodoo. So let's start looking at some books. So I already recommended this book on my blog. There's lots of different books about the herbs that we use. This is more of a Lukumi take on the tradition, and herbs are going to be different if you go into Palo, and we might even hold different ones. And in Haiti, they do have a lot of different herbs than what's in here for Haitian voodoo. But for us, we do use a lot of the same ones in here. And it just gets you to know what's familiar with what's at the Botanica, and some of the very basic uses and what's the names of certain things and what they look like. Because a lot of times Botanicas will send you things and it's not the proper herb either. So I already recommended that one. I recommend, if you're looking to get into Palo, and also this book by Tata Oriate, it's the first volume of his book. I recommend it because I trust him as a spiritual practitioner, and it's good for anybody looking at going to Palo. A lot of it's common sense stuff, but a lot of people don't really know what it's like to be in an Afro-centered spiritual group when it comes to respect and when it comes to development. There are some things in here that you're not going to be able to do unless you are in Palo. There's a few spells and stuff. Some of them you can do. I'll probably do another video about the vevés in voodoo, but it just gives you a really good basic understanding of the basis of Palo, and just about half the book, I'd say, is about, or a third of the book is about developing and your relationship with a spiritual house and getting into a tradition, which is something I'm really interested in exploring more and codifying. This book, Drum and Candle by David St. Clair, I think it's out of print. Let's see, this one was written 1971. And this book is about a guy goes to South America and he starts looking at Kimbanda and Umbanda and going to spiritist groups. But what's really useful about this book, besides just an enjoyable read, is it has a diagram of the energy body and how they do hand passes and how it's believed that it's magnified. So this is what I found the most useful thing in the book, of the currents, the positive and negative charges around the body, what the auric field is made up of and looks like. And then you can see that this is a sort of like a damaged aura, how it has a dent in it, and how the currents go. And then this one showing front and back of the body, the positive and negative currents. So the hands you can see have positive and negative currents, and then you would apply these to the correct or same areas on a client's body to do hand passes and remagnetize, because mediums can become demagnetized, and through healing other people, then you're going to need another medium possibly to help you remagnetize, and we have substances that we can use for that as well. So Allan Kardec's Book of Selected Prayers, we can't do without our tradition without that book. All the prayers that we use are mainly in there, as well as read the Allan Kardec Book of Mediums. That book is free online and it's a PDF. Book of Spirits is okay as well, but definitely read the Book of Mediums. It's also a foundational book of what we do, what we believe in, how, for the most part, and how spirits can interact with us. New Revised Helping Yourself with Selected Prayers by Original Publications. Original Publications isn't a bad publisher. They do publish like different hoodoo books, like cleansing and candle work and etc. And I find that it's a lot more authentic than other publishing houses. This has a lot of good prayers in it. It has it's good for doing bibiomancy besides using the Bible with psalmistry, or you could use the entire Bible. Different prayers, different powers, different saints. There's a prayer to High John the Conqueror. That's one's for domination in here. Prayer of the Indian. Prayer to La Madama. Prayer for Saint Rose of Jericho. Prayer of the Lodestone. Prayer to the Congo Spirit. Prayer to Garlic. But there is a really good prayer to soldiers that have passed in here that I have found very helpful in one situation I was in. So we do bibliomancy with the Book of Selected Prayers, but you can do it with this or with the Bible. I find that these are really helpful books on spiritualism. Also, there's the book Mesa Blanca by Freddy Guevara. It's Cuban Espiritismo, but it's a very helpful book. It's very similar to what we do, and Luis has put out a basic book, Luz y Progresso, and he has a lot of information on his blog also about Espiritismo. Most people have heard of him. He's been doing it a long time, so he's a good reference. Our practices are different from house to house, and we don't necessarily all do the same thing, but when you're a beginner looking at finding out what this tradition actually is, it's a good thing to look at different resources. So to develop yourself as a spiritualist, you're going to have to spiritually develop and personally develop and balance yourself emotionally and mentally and look at your subconscious. And a good way to do that is the book, The Magical Personality. I forget who writes it, but it's one that has it's about like the mermaid and the centaur, and you sort of score yourself where you fit. And say if you're a mermaid, then you're air and water, for example, and you want to be balanced in all four areas of your life. So mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically. And so you should, when you plot on the graph, you should be central. And I think also the book In the Shadow of 13 Moons is more of a Wiccan book, but it does the same thing, but with elements as well. And you can find out where you need to be more balanced, as well as like learning about your own astrology. But this book here, Women Who Run with the Wolves, is by Clarissa Este, and it goes into mythology and folk myths of mostly European, but there's a lot of symbology in that, and to know what your dreams are, or to speak language of the spirits, language of the birds, you need to know what certain symbols are or what you're looking at. And a lot of these really got into our consciousness and in our social consciousness without us even being aware of it. And this is more about the female aspect, but we both have female and male aspects of ourselves that need to be balanced. And so I really recommend this for women, but for anybody really. Myths and stories of the wild woman archetype, right? And so it's more like to do with the subconscious. So, you know, the wolf howls at the moon, right? And the sun is more like the logic and the male conscious. And the subconscious can only be illuminated by logic and by the sun. The moon is only illuminated by the sun. But you're not able to, until you go do shadow work and explore your underworld, which there was another book, I can't remember the name of it right now, but I'll put it below if I remember it, but it also has to do more with Qaballah and initiatory. It's called Underworld Initiation. It's by Stewart. Has to do more with that because that's a major initiatory process. A lot of these things go back to the Egyptians and what they would used to do, and then Christianity then built upon European and Egyptian mythology and paganism. So for men, I would recommend, it's a book called King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, I believe. And it goes into male psychology and social expectations, a bit more Jungian, but a lot more magical and archetypal. And it goes into things like the Oedipus complex, like men, mommies, boys, etc., and being a good king in your life and in your home. Or are you more of a tyrant? Are you more of like a petulant child to get attention? And a lot of what we are has to do a lot with our upbringing and how other people treated us when we were children. But now that we're adults, we have to take responsibility for who and what we are in these things. And it's nature versus nurture, that we aren't necessarily those things. And when we bring up people's bad behavior, people often identify who they are in their ego and feel ashamed with correction and identify themselves with that bad behavior, and then they get offended. But really, you are not necessarily your actions. Everybody can change, and we all make mistakes, right? So also, if you're into tarot, most tarot books, I've been reading tarot for over 15 years, most tarot books are major disappointment. And tarot is based on Qaballah. It's based on Hermetic magic mysticism. It's based on European thought, which goes back to Judaic thought, preserved it, and it goes back to the Egyptians as well, or even probably even before that, back to Babylonian times. Kabbalistic Tarot by Robert Wang. He's a Western magician, and I'd say more mystic, but it goes into a lot of the past where they put them on the tree, and they did do this later, a lot about the astrology. And you can find your tarot cards that you're born with. We're born with usually two, one for day, one for night on our day. And if you're Leo, it's not necessarily the strength card, right? So it goes into that. It explores weight, which I think is the most symbolically correct when it comes to Kabbalah, and the color scales of what realms we're looking at. But it does, I think it discusses some thoth and some of the other ones, and also all the symbols of each of the realms and of each of the spheres as well. And elementally, the path of the flaming sword. Not only the past, but also the spheres, so the planetary energies as well. So, and the Hebrew letters too. So, this one is Strength card. It shows you where it runs between. It's the solar path, so it runs between Jupiter and Mars, with the sun's right underneath it, you can see. And so it has Leo, and it has the Hebrew letters Teth, which is the snake. And if you're interested in Hebrew letters and mysticism, Illuminations by Ashcroft Nowicki is fantastic, and it compares them to different psalms, and it's a hieroglyphic language. It has energy, not only, even though Hebrew is a modern language, it has energy in sound to the hieroglyphic, but it makes the symbol itself, you can dissect it and it means different things. She also writes books of pathworking, which I find very effective for exploring tarot and Kabbalah and the mind, because this is Hermetic Kabbalah. Sandy Anastasi has a book too. It's okay. I've had some good results with it. I found a lot more colder reception, and there's Kayla Trove as well. The Magic of Qaballah has another pathworking book. I don't suggest the ones by Ted Andrews, but Inner Landscapes and The Shining Paths of hers are very fantastic books. These are the most useful books I've probably found in terms of occultism, the ones I just talked about with preparing yourself mentally and Kabbalah and the tarot. Osagbo, Speaking to the Spirits of Misfortune by Ochani Lele, I'm not sure how to say the last name. This book is more about the Yoruban Nigerian path with the Orishas, but it's about suffering and death. It's about misery and misfortunes. It's about Elegua. It's about Ori a little bit. It goes into why it's important to work with Elegua first and in divination and before you work with the other Orishas, because if he gets mad, then he will open the way to misfortunes, and to which the Orisha are not even immune to. So it has Iku, the personification of death, but it's not actually misfortune unless it's before your time. Illness, which is short or long term, tragedy, wickedness, war, gossip, affliction, loss, sorcery or witchcraft, things not good, sudden death, cardiac arrest, paralysis, moral or legal crimes, curses, imprisonment, false imprisonment, and kidnapping, and general afflictions. Those ones are the warlords or of misfortunes, and it goes into some of the Vodou, how they interact with some of the Orisha, which are the good citizens of heaven, along with the good ancestors. So it really helps understand morality in terms of cause and effect and why we do certain things, and also in personal development, even though this isn't not necessarily voodoo or 100% integrated into Sanse. Okay, now voodoo books. Probably the worst one I have in my pile here is a voodoo in Haiti, and trust me, I have a lot of worse books on my bookshelf that I'm not even going to show, and those ones are probably, unfortunately, some of the more popular books. You want to look for ethnographic books, so academic books where they went and looked at the culture. This guy, he joined later, but he's a Mason, and his takes on things, he's more of an observer, not really a practitioner in this book, and as an observer, he probably does make some mistakes in what he's observing, but it has some very good descriptions of his observing certain rituals, but it's not very detailed, and this is more of an academic book. And in terms of philosophy, I wouldn't really take this as 100% truth, but it's a decent book, and these are the type of books you want to look at in terms of looking at the culture and getting to know the culture and the people in the culture. So you want to look at books like Drum and Candle, like I showed you, or like Recreating Africa by James Sweet. It goes into some more like the Congo. This says African Portuguese, so it's more about like Brazil and such, but it does go into the different tribes in Africa and the influences in the New World and some of the other traditions, like because it was a mixture, because there were different tribes which then went into South America, which was the biggest repository of slaves, not Hispaniola or America. It was South America. So it gives you an idea of certain things, and gave me ideas of certain things. The spirituality of African peoples, and this book is a little bit more dry, but these are the type of books that you want to be looking at. Recreating Africa is the better of the two, but that's what you want to have a cultural understanding of the people and the way they lived and their belief systems is a lot better than a modern book in interpretation. Mambo Jumbo by Palo. It's a voodoo adventures in Haiti, but again, it's this is not just a travel book. This is about going around and being around voodoo seance, and she herself is a Haitian mambo. This book is available digitally, but I because it's a big book, and also I don't like killing trees, but there's just something about hardcover books, and if it's a book that you want to keep a long time, then you're probably going to want to buy a physical copy, whether or not you buy ebooks. She's a great writer. That's the other thing. A lot of books are dry, or a lot of priests are not good writers, but she is a great writer, and this one doesn't have as much practical value, but her book, Ayu Bobo, I recommend that to anybody who wants to learn some starting practices of voodoo. And in that book, I only have the digital copy right now, but in that book, it does teach you how to jet, which is, I don't know how it's pronounced because it's a Haitian voodoo Creole word. And we don't really speak as much Creole in our tradition, it's more Spanish, but it's Jete. So how to do a salute, how to do a basic turns, and for a Rada altar, and it's one of the more accurate ones at Ayi Bobo by the same author, Palo. Zora Neale Hurston, Tell My Horse. There's another really common book. I haven't been able to purchase it yet, but it's on my list. A few people criticize this book for being sensationalist, and it is a little bit. It's not all about voodoo. It says voodoo and life in Haiti and Jamaica. So it explores a little bit of Obey, a little bit of Jamaican spiritualism, and her travels, and what she observed from some of the secret societies, which are beyond like voodoo, Humfor, or family voodoo. They have the Bokors and the Swampel and the some of the other secret societies. So I don't know how if you can 100% take everything in this book as truth, because some of the stories seem really out there, but it definitely is worth reading. I wouldn't say that this is a practical book. It has some strange tales, I guess you could say, but it definitely is worth reading. So let's Tell My Horse. I can't really remember the name of the one that I'm going to buy next, but it's one of the ones that are usually recommended. Zora Neale Hurston, she was an ethnographer, so she was interested in traveling around and academically also looking at some of these cultures or reclaiming some of their ethnic ways and practices. Mama Lola, that book I have right now it's out on loan to someone, so I can't show it to you, but it's generally a book that's recommended by a lot of Mambos and voodoo practitioners. It's about more Haitian voodoo, because you're not going to really find a lot of books on Dominican voodoo, which is more properly called 21 Divisions. You're not going to find a lot of books on that. You're not going to find a lot of books on other lineages of voodoo, like they have some in Cuba. They have, Sanse, which is mine, which is Puerto Rican voodoo. There's almost not really a lot of books out of there, and a lot of the references are in Spanish, so these are all English language references. Mama Lola is an interesting book. It's about it's about voodoo priestess in Brooklyn, but I think now she lives in New Orleans and is still practicing. And if you get a chance to see her, I would, because she's probably getting older. And it's about her temple and her family and serving the Loa. Again, it's not really a practical book, but the insights it gives you is not as academic, and it's a lot more insightful, and she embodies a lot of the Loa. Like when she goes to Haiti, her country cousins, so to say, have to put up with her airs, and she's kind of being like an exili, and she does that so they don't feel bad about themselves, because she is giving away a lot of her possessions and stuff, so that the people actually feel like they earn it by having to put up with her, even though she's normally not really like that. So she makes them bathe her, etc. She takes the best room in the house. She has an article of clothing she's going to give away, but she makes the person receiving it repair the button first, for example. So a really interesting book, and it's recommended by a lot of people. Other book I have here is Rara. It's by Elizabeth McAllister. It should come with a CD of Rara music. This one, unfortunately, did not come with that. But what Rara is it's, you can see it looks like marching band. So where some of the carnival has some of the same origins, this is more of a military or secret society, more of a petro type focus, because they would double as protests and a social expression. It says voodoo power and performance in Haiti and its diaspora. And so it has a better insight in some of the more Congo practice within Haiti. And so this says Rara and the use of Puen, and how songs have power and can have double meaning. And that's also often what needs to be done in a repressive revolutionary societies for safety. And it does have its limitations because it's an observer, and it does get into like the bodiness and the gere and expression, and it does get into Judaism and how that's considered evil. Now, they don't think that Jews are evil, and they're not anti-Semitic. What it is that this book has limitations because it doesn't explain how that's how a lot of the colonialism was funded, because they were the bankers originally. It was considered unchristian usury to do banking, but it's sort of Christians. Some blame the Jews for crucifying Jesus, but Jesus was a Jew. If we're going to be taking things literally. And so they beat up a Judas around Easter time. They have sort of a scapegoat, right? And that's why there's animal sacrifices within Judaism still to this day, because they don't accept Jesus as the blood sacrifice. And so even in Cuba, when they make ingangas, the spirit pots, they have blessed ones for good with crucifix, and they steal the mass. That's Cristiano, so they use it for healing and more for good. And then there's Judia, which is more for cursing, etc. Because like with the Kabbalah and stuff, like the Jews do have a system of mysticism, and whether or not it's outlawed or considered witchcraft or evil, it definitely, there's a full practice in every religion, and a lot of Western magic and sorcery and working with the Goetia, etc., has been preserved, and they do it through Judaism, they do it through the names of Yahweh, etc., and even in what became of hoodoo, in using the Psalms, even though they're more Protestant and don't use Catholic saints or anything till more modern times. You can easily see how the Christianity can be used as a tool, and was used as a tool for colonialism, etc. So Rara is a really interesting book. This is one that most people have not heard of. Nandomi, which means nan means under, like nandelo means underwater. L'eau is a French word for water, but de l'eau became the Creole word in Haiti. Initiate's journey into Haitian voodoo. Memoros P. Beaubrun, and I believe that she was one of the musicians that was in a famous voodoo band, Boukman Esperance, yeah. And she's also an anthropologist, but she was brought up in, she was brought up in Haiti, and I think later also entered into the tradition, but her family was also practitioners, and it goes into that, and it goes more into like dreaming in the dreamland, and goes more into astral projection and shape-shifting with what could be considered loup-garou, the werewolf, not necessarily so much the baka, and parts of the soul with the bon ange and the gros bon ange. But what people think is the T, some people ascribe that to the gros, the bigger. Some people explain to the gros, some people subscribe that to the T. I think T is littler, so I more think that's more like the ego and the animal self personally, and that's what also matches up with Western mysticism, because Masonry, some Masonry and some of the alchemists, the French and Western magic, and just because of Christianity, did make its way into voodoo in Haiti. And so that's the way I ascribe it, but I will note that some people do the reverse. I think she does it like I do it. But this book is really, really good book for understanding a lot of things. It has a lot of Creole and what those words mean in here as well. Informally and lucid dreaming. And you'll learn a lot through this book. And it's also a really enjoyable read. It's a really interesting book to read it. And going to misas and you want to know what's being sung, Cantos para misa espirituale. And they're all in Spanish for the Spanish songs, but I've just translated them with pencil just so that I could understand what I'm singing. But I do a lot of prayers, and I do a lot of songs in Spanish. Latin, French, and Spanish are very pretty languages as well. So you can see Canción a San Miguel, Saint Michael. San Miguel venció, San Miguel venció. So he wins battles. He wins against your enemy with the power of God. So come and win, good spirit. Overcome difficulties. You win once, you win twice. Come and win, good spirit. Win against difficulties. Come and win, good spirit, and go defeat. Basically, the basic translation of what that song when you're actually singing it. And they sing this song also. They sing that in that song also in Dominican voodoo for the Loa Belly Can, who uses the saint images. Of course, I have my blog for all you readers interested in reading. And anything else I can help anybody with, or you have any video requests, let me know. My Facebook page, you can message me if you don't want it public. I leave a comment. My comments are on preview, but just go ahead, and if you leave an appropriate comment, I have no problem approving them. So thanks for watching. Sanse to 7 Crossroads, Siete Cruzadas. See you guys soon.